Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Boardman Black and Gold podcast. We are into the offseason, and unfortunately, we have to deal with another Chiefs-Eagles Super Bowl. And David, I haven't asked you this. I personally, are you going to watch it?
Well, I've already seen this one, so I don't know if I need to. But I've been holding that one in. I'm like, I gotta say that. But I think I probably will. I'll probably tune into it. If I'm probably not gonna like. I don't know. I feel like I always, make sure I watch the Super Bowl and see what's going on. Last year, not as much, but this year I'm kind of like, if it's on, I'll watch it. But I don't really care all that much. It's kind of, and I know you think the NFL is scripted. If it is, it's a horrible script because they know that nobody in the world besides Chiefs and Eagles fans want to watch this game. So this makes me believe it's not scripted because no one wants this. So,
Well, the whole thing is, it's like they're getting what they're wanting in their minds, I guess, theoretically. But at the same time, it's like, if they get good numbers for this Super Bowl, then it just proves that like everybody's a sheep and like they'll watch whatever they put out there, which will further allow the NFL to just kind of do what they want because they know people are going to watch. So, like you said, we've seen this one before. So, personally, I don't have much reason to watch it. I'm actually going to be with some friends that night. So, we're probably just going to do something else. Like, we're not going to necessarily watch the game, I don't think so, which I'm not opposed to. I mean, I'd rather do literally anything else than have to watch that.
no, Sam, I mean, the only reason why I'd probably watch it this year is because our hall will have like a Super Bowl party event. So I might have to be there. But it's like, it's just kind of disappointing. Like this year is a rematch of like 2 years ago. And last year was a rematch of Super Bowl 54. So it literally is just the same two teams every time. So yeah, I don't know. Not much reason to watch. The Bills were yet again a play away from making something happen, but
Yep, that's how it goes. And, we can't change it now. And I guess that's just how it's going to be, which in my mind, it's also very frustrating that we as fans, actually, not even just Steelers fans, just fans of like literally 31 other teams. I guess you could say 30 teams with the Eagles, but like this entire season's just a waste. And it seems like these last 3 seasons have been a waste just with how it's ended. And it's like, it's getting boring. I feel like I don't care to watch deep into these playoffs anymore. Like a couple of the divisional games I thought were really good, like the Commanders and the Lions. I mean, that was a great game. Like it's just I don't have any stock in the NFL anymore. I don't feel like.
no, and I feel like I've felt that recently the past couple of years where it's like I like to watch the playoffs up into the divisional point, and then after that it's like, all right, well the same teams are still here. So, but like wild card, it's super fun because there's a bunch of teams that you don't normally see. And then after that it's like, all right, same four teams, which I don't really understand. Like part of that, the other teams need to figure out how to beat these guys because it's just like, yeah, it's not fun knowing that there's a limit and there's a line and these teams cross it and these teams don't. And I feel like it's been like that almost like the entire since Super Bowl 53, 54. Like since then, it's been the exact same playoffs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And even teams like the Lions, who we thought were probably going to be into that upper tier, like even they can't get to the next level and they can't find a way to beat these teams. So, there's no parity anymore, which parity is what makes things exciting. That's what makes a lot of the other leagues so much more exciting is that there are new teams in it every year and you have a fresh take on things, but the NFL, it's lost its parity. Any given Sunday is starting to lose its value, I feel like. Would you agree?
I would agree. And I think honestly, part of that is because of college football and because college football has become like that. And now it's going to get even worse because of the money, where it's like so many people aren't even playing to play football. It's just, they're just playing for money versus like, I don't know, I mean, I wouldn't even say back in the day, literally 5 years ago or 8 years ago, people were playing football to play football. And now it's almost like a 50-50, almost a 60-40 of guys there for their brand or their money and not actually playing football. And like you mentioned, how the Super Bowl, it's not even fans anymore. It's just all the famous people and like business executives. And it's like, what kind of environment is that? Like, it's just lame. They've ruined it. They they need to get back. They need to get to like specifically the MLB, but also NHL playoff. Like those games are just the most fun to watch because of the fans. Like it's just electric.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I mean, I swear up and down by this, and I always have, but the Stanley Cup playoffs is the best tournament in North American sports by far, I would say, because the parity is incredible, the atmospheres are incredible, and it really like you could have a heavy favorite and it just doesn't matter because a huge underdog can win at any time. And, you know, a lot of these other leagues, it's getting to the point where the parity, even with this large difference in skill, it's just not there anymore. But the NHL, it's always been that way, which is what makes it so cool. So yeah, that's our little Super Bowl talk, I feel like.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about the Steelers because we're well into the offseason by now. And I think that the thing that we wanted to do in this first offseason episode was kind of just talk about the quarterback situation. We have a couple of options as far as the quarterbacks coming into the 2025 season. And it seems like this week, Art Rooney has said that it's either going to be, it's going to be one of two things. It's going to be Russ or Fields, not both, one or the other, or it's going to be something completely new, which would probably have to be addressed in the draft. So I guess I'll just start just throwing it at you. What's your initial take on what we should do in the quarterback room? Not necessarily what they would do, but what they should do.
I think number one, you don't draft a quarterback. This quarterback draft isn't the best, and you don't. Again, you're 10-7. You don't have a good draft picks for a quarterback. So don't. We tried this exact same pick on Kenny Pickett and it didn't work. So don't draft a quarterback. You let Russell Wilson walk. The only reason you would sign Russell Wilson is if you the reason you'd sign Russell Wilson. He is we can win right now. We can't. We're not going to win a Super Bowl next year. We probably won't win it the year after. And that's probably all Russ has got left. So no, you don't sign Russell Wilson back. I think you sign Justin Fields to like a 3-4 year deal. And unfortunately, I'm banking on the fact that they like develop him and make him better each year, and we don't develop our players. But I think the ideal situation in this is you don't have a good enough draft pick to get a quarterback. Russell Wilson is just too old and didn't do enough to make you want to keep him. And I think that Justin Fields is just the best medium and the best option.
Okay. So you said you're like talking a multi-year deal, like 3-4 years?
Yeah, I think that, because we know the Steelers aren't going to a rebuild because they just won't do that as long as Mike Tomlin is still the head coach. And maybe as long as this Rooney is still the president. But I think that why not give it a shot, 2 or 3 years, 3 or 4, and just see what happens. See what happens. We have the same quarterback 2 years in a row because we haven't had that since Big Ben. We haven't even had a quarterback play a full season since Big Ben. So that would be interesting to see. And I wouldn't hate it because I like Justin Fields. I'll be honest, I like him. He would make me want to watch the Steelers on Sundays. I'm telling you right now, if they don't sign him, if they sign Russell Wilson, it's going to be really hard. Like this new season will be so different for me. I won't be at home. I won't be at college. I'll be married in a, Lord willing, an apartment and hopefully with a job. Like they're going to have to make me want to watch the Steelers. Like my Sundays will become very I need this free time. I want this free time. I'm not going to want to waste it on the Russell Wilson Steelers.
That's a great point. And that's a really interesting perspective that you have just on the stage of life that you're in, that like you're having a lot of things vying for your attention right now. And
Yeah.
like, if the Steelers aren't worth your attention, then they're not gonna get your viewership, that's really interesting. That's a cool perspective.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I appreciate that. Of course, I mean, odds are, of course, I'll still end up watching just because they're the Steelers. Like, with when it comes to the Penguins, I kind of go in and out. I try and watch as many of the highlights as I can and keep up to date with how they're doing. But they've just been doing so bad recently. And the Pirates, ever since 2020, I've been fairly consistent of keeping up with them. But yeah, the Steelers, I've watched them since I've grown up. So it's like, how can I not watch them? It's like, I don't even know how to do that.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So here's what I say about Justin Fields. I don't know if I completely agree with a multi-year deal to that extent, but I do think that it's a better idea to bring him back if the choice is between him and Russ. I don't like the idea of bringing Russ back for the same reason as you. I think his ceiling has already been achieved. I don't think he can bring us to anything more than we've already seen. And frankly, I mean, he didn't beat a good team down the stretch. Like, I feel like there's more of a chance to get lucky and win one of the last 5 games than to just lose all 5 of them. Does that track with you?
Well, I completely agree. And I think that, let's remember, sure, you could say it's the beginning of the year, but let's remember Justin Fields' 3 wins. One was against Atlanta, which, obviously they kind of fell out towards the end of the year. But the first 8 weeks of the season, they were a good team. Then it was against Denver, who, again, playoff team. Then it was against the Chargers, who were a playoff 11-win team. So I completely agree with you. Now, I do have a question for you, because this is why I think I just have always in my mind pictured a multi-year deal with Justin Fields. Do you think that Justin Fields would take a 1-year deal?
That's a good question. Now, in my mind, the way that I would approach it would be to give him a 2-year deal. I wouldn't go any more than 2 years necessarily, but that's a great point because I don't think he would sign just a 1-year deal. I think that he has, I mean, if we take him basically from where he is right now, he's trending upward in terms of, I think, just overall press. I think the NFL at large is higher on him than they were in the past. And from his perspective, I don't think taking a 1-year deal with the Steelers, who have no direction, would make any sense. So, because I mean, he would probably benefit by going to a place where, they can actually develop him over the course of time. I think of teams like the Raiders, even teams like the Jags, who knows what's going on with Trevor Lawrence right now, but he's a cheaper option than a lot of other guys that would be floating around in free agency. Think about guys like, Matt Stafford. I don't know if he's at the end of his contract or if he's a trade candidate, but there's guys around the league that would be much more expensive to bring in than Justin Fields. So I think right now, from Justin Fields' perspective, I think he sees greener pastures elsewhere, and I don't think he would sign for a 1-year deal. Now, if I did it the way that I'm thinking of and give him a 2-year deal, then it's kind of like, okay, I'm going to bet on myself. If I'm Justin Fields, I'm going to bet that I can take this team to some level of success. And then perhaps either I'm a trade candidate or I bring the Steelers to more success in year 2 or year 1. So I think from Fields' perspective, he needs to have a couple of years on the deal if he's going to stay in Pittsburgh. Kind of like you're saying, like, if that's the way we have to get him, like, then, sign him to a 3 or 4 year deal. But from his perspective, I think he sees the opportunity to maybe go elsewhere and bring a team some success. Now, I guess the question that I'll kind of throw back at you is, how much do you think Fields craves success? Do you think he is imminently I need success now? And I guess from there, what do you think he would choose based on your answer to that?
I do think he wants success, and so I think that I think you kind of saw it in college. He was at Georgia, and before Georgia was who they are now, and came to Ohio State because he wanted to win, and well, obviously he did a lot of winning, but so I do think he wants to win. I think he wants to be a franchise quarterback. I think he wants to get all this, and so I think that I agree with you in that there are a lot of places that look a lot better where I mean, likely you win a lot more with them versus with us. But I think that again, I think that Mike Tomlin, I think, is still able to put the wool over people's eyes and be like, I can get you a good team. We can be good this year. I think that he'd be able to convince Justin Fields if they offered him a multi-year deal. I don't think he'd take a 1 year. Two could be tricky. I don't know what he'd do there. I think it would probably take a lot of convincing because at that point, after those 2 years, you're out of you're basically out of your prime, and then it's like where you go from there. So I don't know. I think it depends on what they offer him because, but I don't know where he'll go honestly. But I do think he wants to win, and I think people might still think that you could win in Pittsburgh, but I don't know. That has been going downhill a lot, and people have been thinking that a lot less, especially after this year. Um, but my question for you is: do you think there's even a positive possibility of anything in the draft?
I've seen a lot this week that the Steelers like Jalen Milroe a lot, which, oh my gosh, I wish I could have gotten that picture on the screen of you face palming yourself. That was excellent.
That I literally was just watching college football highlights today and I saw him and I was like, he's not like an actual quarterback. And oh my gosh, that would be it. That would be something where I wouldn't watch the Steelers if we drafted Jalen Milroe and started him. Oh, that'd be horrible.
Man, so we got David's take on that. Personally, I agree with everything you said. I don't think he projects as a starting caliber NFL quarterback, so I would stay away from him. Now, there's one guy that I see a lot, and it's Jackson Dart, which I think he's the Ole Miss guy. And he's not going to project as a high pick, but he's a guy that you can get in the third or fourth round or something like that that could kind of be a sneaky, we can snag this guy late and he could maybe turn into something good. So I don't know how much you know about him. Personally, I don't know a whole lot about him myself, so I can't necessarily talk a whole lot into that, but I have seen a lot of traction for him, maybe not necessarily in Steelers media and thinking, but just as an overall kind of thought.
I think I don't know too much about him either, but I have heard from my friend who is an SEC fan that Ole Miss had a good year and Jackson Dart I think he said was pretty good. So I don't think it'd be a horrible decision, but I don't know. I think it's a risk getting anybody who doesn't look like they're already ready to play in the NFL just because of like we say, we don't develop. And so Kenny Pickett came into the NFL and stayed at the level he was at. And you could argue, the same with Big Ben. He always did great. He never had a bad season to start. He never had rough seasons in the beginning of his career. So he always could deal and throw it around and win games. So I think that it just would make it would make me scared because it's I don't know if I would feel bad getting a rookie who wants to be developed because we can't and we don't versus I don't know going somewhere else who could. But yeah, I don't know. That's interesting. I didn't know that those were the two that kind of popped up, but I don't know. I would love to not resource to the draft.
I think that next year's draft, which actually is that one in Pittsburgh? The 2026 draft?
I think so.
That's the draft to get a quarterback, out of
Oh,
any,
that's
if any draft, that's the one, right?
yeah. Oh, I mean, without a doubt, there's a lot more from what I've heard and seen quality quarterbacks. And then, yeah, who knows what'll happen? I honestly think we could tank this year. Like, I think just like the hope is gone right now. And if we don't get it back some point before the season starts, we're going to be in a lot of trouble. So if we do worse than previous years, we'd have a better pick anyways. So I do agree that next year would likely be a better year to do it.
So here's you led me into my prime argument for why they should bring back Justin Fields. Now I know that we said that we can't really bank on getting him on a 1-year deal. Now here's what I would say to that. If you can convince him to come back on a 1-year deal, maybe pay him a little bit extra. Here's what you could get next season with Justin Fields as the guy who he's not, behind Russell Wilson on the depth chart. This is what happens if you get Justin Fields. You can either go 11-6 and maybe make the playoffs, or you could go 6-11 and be in the running for one of the top picks in the draft. And I think that that's a real reality that either of those two can happen. And I think both are equally as likely as the other, which in my mind, I'm willing to take that. I don't think he would go 9-8 or 8-9. I think it's one or the other. He either goes 11-6 or he goes 6-11, which either of those is an ideal outcome, because one, it's like, oh, we get to relive the delusion that we had in this season where, hey, maybe we can win a playoff game, or who knows what happens. Or we're in the other side and we finally get a top draft pick for the first time since we drafted Big Ben. So in my mind, it's like, that's like the best case scenario. So if you can get Justin Fields back, in my mind, I would say, hey, pay him a little extra money to come back on a 1-year deal. Say, hey, man, this is your prove it year. You can't really say that 2024 was your prove it year because you only played in, what was it? Did you play seven games? Is that right?
Something like that. Yeah.
So not a whole lot of sample size, and bless you, not a whole lot of that was in the back end of the season. So again, he's trending upwards in the eyes of the NFL, but how much can you really put stock into that? Again, I would say try to convince him, even if you have to send a little bit more money his way, sign him to that 1-year deal and say, hey, here's the keys, go take it. See what happens. What do you think about that?
I completely agree. I agree that just as of now, Justin Fields is the answer for quarterback and what we should do and need to do. And I like that idea. Like, I like either making a team good enough to win a playoff game or losing so bad that you get a good draft pick. When we got Big Ben, I think we were 6-10. So going 6-11 is pretty reasonable. And yeah, I agree with everything you said.
Okay. So as far as that goes, that's kind of the options that are on the table. Now, if there is one other thing that we can maybe talk about, I've seen floated around the idea of bringing neither of them back and going out and getting an actual NFL proven quarterback at this juncture in his career. So essentially what we would do is we would do the Russ deal again, just with a different guy. And the one name that I see out there a lot is Matt Stafford. So, and I don't know if there's necessarily other names that kind of fit that bill, but I've seen Matthew Stafford in some conversations surrounding the Steelers. And again, I can't remember if he is already a free agent or if we would have to trade for him. But regardless, what's your thoughts on maybe going out and just getting a different NFL caliber quarterback?
Well, I don't know. I just don't know if it would work. I think that like we tried that this year, like you said, with Russell Wilson, and I mean even Justin Fields too. And I, I don't know if it'd be worth it. Like I think that I don't know if it'd be worth coughing up some draft picks because like I'm in the mindset of like I don't really think we can win now, and so it's like I think we should save our draft picks and try and build for the future. And so I don't know if I like that, and I just don't know if it would work. But what are your thoughts?
I'm kind of intrigued, I think is the best word, at the idea of Matt Stafford. I mean, he's older, he has success, but again, at the same time, I can't remember if he still has a year on his deal or not. If he does, and it does take capital, then I would say absolutely not, but for the same reason that you did. But if it is like a free agent type of signing, then I would say I would maybe entertain the thought. And it seems like Stafford specifically, he still wants to win. And from the perspective on the outside, it's like, hey, the Steelers, they're always in it at the end. And, maybe it does give him a chance to win. Maybe he does like the idea of coming on a 1-year deal or something like that. But as a whole, I would say no. I would steer away from that option, I guess. And really, in my mind, it would be like, just go after Justin Fields and just see what happens. And I think also too, with that, the pressure's off of Justin Fields. Like, the expectation isn't for him to take you to the Super Bowl, but you do give him the opportunity to kind of showcase himself. And if he does do that on a 1-year deal and he does succeed, then he can go elsewhere and maybe demand a little bit more money in free agency. So again, I think we kind of keep circling back to Justin Fields, and I think it just has to be the best option for us.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think that I I think that Justin Fields is the optimal choice, and give him, a chance. Like, let's see what he can do. Give him a full year. Like, let's just see. And so I think that's the best. And I think that we may be done looking at other veteran quarterbacks, because I do remember there was a little bit of time, very small amount of time, where Aaron Rodgers was talked about.
Ugh.
And I was like, yeah, that was my reaction too. And we kind of closed the door on that. So I think I think that just the best choice, like we've been saying, is Justin Fields.
Yeah. We kind of have our idea of it. Now, I guess the question is, we've talked about what we should do. What do you think that they will do? Based on history, based on what you know about this team, are they going to try to develop Justin Fields? Are they going to allow him to develop? Because like you've mentioned several times, Mike Tomlin is not necessarily qualified to develop a quarterback because he has never done that ever.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think we would offer Justin Fields like a 3-4 year deal. Like, I just don't think we'd give him the money, because we don't tend to do that, and especially offensively. And then I think that Mike Tomlin would probably like Russell Wilson, because I think it's like, he's the quarterback. I don't got to care about the offense. Like, I think that's what it was for so long, was Big Ben's at the helm. Cool. You just throw the ball, do your thing. And so I think that, like, he might be just tempted to be like, I want that again. Like, give me a guy that I can just put out there and it'd be fine. And so my fear is that they sign Russell Wilson. And I think that it's kind of like, I don't think we'll go draft. I think it's a 50-50 shot between Justin Fields and Russell Wilson.
I don't think they're going to draft either. And if we do get to draft night and we do see a quarterback taken, especially with that first round pick, I would probably be just as devastated as I was when we drafted Kenny Pickett.
Yeah. No, I mean, I remember I wasn't devastated. I remember just like being like, just almost having like no emotion, where I was like, okay, like, is he really going to be the guy? Like, I just was like, I don't know. And so, yeah, if they draft a quarterback this draft, I will be upset. I will be very upset.
There's so many other problems with this team that drafting a quarterback.
Wide receiver.
Yeah, right.
Wide receiver.
Yeah. That, in a nutshell, absolutely. I mean, it doesn't matter who you have at quarterback if you guys can't get open, which I think, again, that was the biggest problem this year. Is maybe that's for the reason that Justin Fields and Russell Wilson didn't play very well. I mean, like, the receivers were just not good this year. They were awful. And I think we tried to maybe pander to them a little bit and just say, hey, like, they're trying to figure it out. They're working at it. But at the end of the year, I mean, you can't look at it and say that it was a successful group. And I think that's a bigger problem, honestly, than the quarterback situation.
No, I agree. I think that the only people that I have a place in my heart that I would want to keep in the receiving core is Pat Freiermuth and Calvin Austin III. And I think that like even though Mike Williams played good when he was out there, he's up there, so I'm okay with whatever we choose to do. I would love it. I want to trade George Pickens. I think he drags the wrong type of attention, and sure he gets open when he runs straight, and like that's just not that. He's like Martavis Bryant, who Martavis Bryant worked when Antonio Brown was the number one guy. So I think that I just would love George Pickens to get traded, get some sort of capital, and then we draft a solid like two solid receivers in this draft.
Yeah. And who knows what the heck is going on with Roman Wilson. If he ever sees the field, who knows? But
yeah, I mean, I would love for him to see the field because I think he could do something, but he's disappeared.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of our thoughts on the quarterback situation. We came into this season having really no idea what was going to happen with the quarterback. There were rumors floated around about Justin Fields, about Russell Wilson. Last year, about this time, we're thinking, who's going to be the quarterback? We were thinking it might be Kenny. We thinking it might be Mason Rudolph. And then they go out and they do something big. And now here we are, not quite 12 months later, and we're thinking, man, we're right back to square one. We don't know who's going to be throwing the ball around this year. So it's a weird situation. I think there's a simple solution, but again, how much do you trust this organization to make the right choice?
Right. And as recently, I would say I don't trust them that much.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I don't know when they'll make the decision, but whenever they do, I'll be tuned in.
When does free agency officially open up? Do you know?
I don't know. Is it on a Tuesday?
I don't know. How soon after the Super Bowl is it usually?
I don't remember. I'll look that up because I remember it's always kind of like a fun thing. Like I think I remember last year, I was in the gym and like ESPN was counting it down and like it started in like afternoon, March 10th, 2025. The negotiation window opens then, and the league year begins March 12th. So March 12th is when everything's going to go crazy because they'll have had 2 days to, do a little legal negotiating. I'm sure there's always talks before that, but that's always a fun day. Let's see. That's on a Wednesday, and the 10th is a Monday. So it's right around that time. It'll be interesting to see. That's always a fun time.
Yeah. So we have about a month and a half to kind of speculate in terms of what's going to happen this offseason. And we'll definitely have some more episodes speculating. We didn't talk about anything really but the quarterbacks, and we have pretty much the entirety of the offense as well as some stuff on the defense to talk about. So we'll save those for other episodes. This is kind of how our offseason episodes are going to be founded. There'll kind of be a little bit more quick hitters than our normal in-season episodes, probably hovering around 25, 35 minutes or so, and it'll usually be around a certain subject. We did talk about the Super Bowl just for a couple minutes in this one, but this is kind of the expectation that you can expect out of the Boardman Black and Gold podcast for the offseason. And I said this like in our last episode after the playoff loss, is that we don't necessarily have a schedule for these, but you can just expect them to kind of come up, semi-frequently. I think what we're going to probably try to do is, do it, once a week, once every other week, something like that, or whenever news kind of comes out that we do get to talk about things, and we'll kind of fashion that around the way that we've been doing it for, now, what is it? Is this the beginning of year 3? Is this right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
How cool is that?
Yeah. It's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome to think that it doesn't feel like that long, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah, you're right. It feels like time has flown by, and, not a whole lot of success with the actual team in that span, but, it's been fun to at least talk about it and to, speculate and to have discourse on it. And I think, like you said at the end of our of the playoff loss episode, is like it's kind of a silver lining to where, if we weren't talking about it, in a setting like this, it would probably be even worse. So it is fun to be able to get to do this.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. It definitely like gives me more, like what I was saying about almost tuning out. Like this gives me a reason to stay tuned in no matter what. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, as always, the Boardman Black and Gold podcast is sponsored by Zecca Enterprises, crafting furniture solutions in northwestern Pennsylvania. You can call 910-777-3871 to turn your furniture problems into furniture solutions. We'll be back with another episode at some point. We will undoubtedly have to talk about Najee Harris, the rest of the offense, some of the stuff on the defense. There are some rumors as to maybe some contract extensions with some people. And, we'll have to talk about, we have plenty to talk about this offseason.
Yeah.
This is definitely one that's going to be chock full of some stuff. So keep your post notifications on for Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you get to listen to us. And actually, one more thing before we go, we have officially reached 100 cities that have listened to our podcast. And we have had places as far as Ukraine, South Korea, Japan, Australia, and Sweden that have listened to our podcast. So we are continuing to just get bigger and bigger. And it's super cool to know that there are people that are around the nation, or not just around the nation, but around the world that are part of Steelers Nation. So that's been super cool to kind of keep track of.
Yeah, I mean, it's been crazy. You've been sending me stuff multiple times about other countries and everything. And the more that it keeps kind of going, the more we see just a lot of, other countries. And it's just wow, this is so cool to think people from Ukraine, Australia, Sweden, Japan. It's just kind of crazy to be oh my gosh, people are listening. It's so cool.
And if you are,
so thankful.
Yes, we are so thankful. We thank you for listening, and we appreciate your listenership. And here's the deal. If you are listening to us right now, make sure you go and follow our Instagram page at Boardman and Gold, not Boardman Black and Gold. We shortened it to Boardman and Gold. Fun fact, that was actually the original name for this podcast, but we made sure that we got the black and gold in there because, hey, it is the black and gold. So make sure you go to our Instagram account at Boardman and Gold. Give us a follow. And if you are from one of these places outside the United States and you are listening to us, send us a DM. We want to know who you are. We want to have some conversations with you. And heck, we might even get you on the podcast at some point. We'll do some more of these inside perspectives that I did with other Steelers fans prior. And we want to talk to you guys because this is the entire point of this podcast, is to just talk Steelers. And, that's what it's all about. And we love doing it. And we want you guys to be a part of it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be awesome. We'd love to know who you are and just kind of, get in touch with the people that are listening. So, because it's pretty cool.
Yeah. And if you have friends that are Steelers fans, or even people that just, are podcast listeners, make sure you send this podcast to them, trying to, just get our name out there. We would love to just get bigger one day. And we have seen from year 1 to year 2, now coming into year 3, we saw a massive increase in our listenership. So thank you guys, as always, for listening. And again, it's so fun to be able to do what we get to do. And hey, we're not going anywhere. As much as the Steelers might be on a downward trajectory, Boardman Black and Gold is going the other way. So we're not going anywhere. And hey, keep listening. We're going to have a fun time this offseason.
Yeah, we are. We can't wait.
All right. As always, thanks for listening to the Boardman Black and Gold podcast. We'll be back next time. Hopefully it's after a Here We Go Steelers good rumor or something of the like. And again, thanks for listening. Boardman Black and Gold, Zane and David, we're out.